The season 3 premiere episode, Breakfast Bunch of Victorious, is easily one of my favorite episodes of the whole series. So this episode is supposed to parody a famous teen movie from the 80s, and at the time I was watching this episode, I never understood the references because I never watched The Breakfast Club growing up, and when I was watching this episode, I had no idea what was going on. And I was just hella confused, but that just made it all the better. But, after watching the Breakfast Club, I completely understand the references now. And, I think Victorious did a great job of embodying their own unique version of a cult classic, which, for my younger crowd, I want you guys to understand this movie, The Breakfast Club, shaped the way that we view adolescent cinema and television. Dan Schneider, the creator of Victorious, I think he did a good job of, combining The Breakfast Club and Victorious. Using The Breakfast Club to influence Victorious, but having Victorious have its own unique identity, its own unique rendition of the movie. And it also combines, Gen Xers, Millennials, Gen Zers. It puts us all on the same pedestal and basically gives us an opportunity to enjoy the same piece of pop culture. And I'm willing to strongly argue why this episode is the best episode in my opinion, because it really doesn't matter in the end.
She's a runner, she's a track star.
You mess with the cow, you get the udders.
So to understand the Breakfast Club references in Victorious, we gotta break down what archetype each character is supposed to represent. Tori is supposed to represent Claire, the princess. Andre is supposed to represent Andy, the athlete. Robbie is supposed to represent Brian, the brain. Kat is supposed to represent Allison, the basket case or freak. And Beck and Jade are supposed to represent Bender, even though Jade is dressed as the basket case. All the similarities between the characters have deviations that work within the plot, and using the high school stereotypes to accommodate for the characters specifically in Victorious was pure genius. So internally, Tori and Jade are supposed to represent Bender, even though Beck is dressed as Bender. Bender's the criminal, which makes sense because, Jade is rebellious and Tori stands up to Jade, which also makes her rebellious. I knew they had to be Bender because even though Beck, is dressed as Bender, he doesn't really do anything in the episode. It's actually pretty crazy how Beck really doesn't do anything in the show besides just look handsome. With that example, I really feel like this episode summarizes Victorious, like the show in a nutshell. Beck is just an extension of Bender because of his appearance, and all he needed to do in this episode was just flip his cool hair. Tori and Jade are supposed to represent Bender, but surface level Tori is the princess because she's the star of the show, obviously, and Jade is the basket case because, she's a freak, put it simply. Tori and Jade, they split the role of Bender because Bender, he got 8 extra Saturday detentions in the Breakfast Club, and Tori got 5 and Jade got 3, so they divided that role. Watching this episode as a kid, I never watched the Breakfast Club, and now that I have, the scene where Jade antagonizes Kat about being a vegan just hits different, especially when you allude tacos as a representation of weed and sex. Watching this as an adult made me realize the writers of the show were basically saying Robbie and Kat were the only virgins in the gang, and Robbie, misleads Jade into thinking that he had sex with Tori. Andre's role is pretty consistent throughout the episode. He's taking out the sidelines when he's needed for the game to play, and he's that extra reserved, stored energy that we could use in the show. Andre's black, so I guess he's automatically athletic. I don't think him being black was why he got the part of Andy, the athlete. I guess it made more sense, with Beck being the criminal and Robbie being the brain archetype. I think this role actually was perfect for Andre's character because, the athlete is supposed to be like a man's man, kind of like Joey from Friends. This character is supposed to represent, bravado, brute, strength, a warrior spirit. In Andre's case, he just puts all that energy towards his music. So Kat is supposed to represent the basket case internally and the princess on the surface. It can be kind of confusing because Jade is the one that's dressed as the basket case, but Kat, she's the naive one, she's the dumb character, and she's like the liability of the group. And Allison in the Breakfast Club, would probably most likely be considered the weakest link. And Kat pulls the dependent aspect, the childlike wonder aspect from Allison, and Jade, she pulls the misunderstood freakazoid, the outcast aspect from Allison. You know, Kat is surface level princess because, you know, she's pretty, she's dainty, just like Tori. But the only difference is Tori is a rebel internally, and Kat, she's the basket case. Yo, this episode made me realize that Robbie is truly the best character in Victorious. You know, Brian is arguably the best character in the Breakfast Club, and Robbie, you know, he nailed him on the head, especially with the conceited line, like, you're so conceited. Like, that shit was hilarious. And definitely, especially not watching the Breakfast Club before watching this episode, I had no idea what the fuck Robbie was on. Like, Robbie was literally a clown the entire episode. You know, Brian and Robbie play the nerd character so well because when you separate the expectations of the character and the character themselves, you're left with someone you truly care about. You know, you're left with someone who's been dehumanized, unmasked. And when you know, look beyond, you know, the nerd stereotype, the on the surface, you see someone who's chill, who's down to earth, and, you know, low-key hilarious. You know, chicks cannot hold their smoke. They're hot sauce.
Chicks cannot hold their smoke.
Chicks cannot hold they hot sauce.
Robbie is the reason they're in detention. You know, Robbie is easily the most complex character in Victorious. I could make a whole nother video on that if y'all wanted. You know, Rex, he's supposed to be Robbie's extension of his alter ego. You know, even though Robbie, he's a nerd, he's not too nerdy enough to hang out with the cool kids. You know, he gives us, you know, those Chase vibes, the quirky awkwardness that, you know, people tend to gravitate towards. You know, kind of like Josh from Drake and Josh. Robbie is the most complex character in this episode, because he goes through the most change. You know, I would consider Robbie, honestly, the nerd basket case, which makes a lot of sense because Robbie, you know, he has similarities to Allison. You know, how they're both in a shell of themselves. You know, how they mask their insecurities with a temporary solution, you know, with the makeover. I guess what I'm trying to say is I have a new respect for Robbie because, you know, knowing how heavy his heart must feel, going through life awkwardly, not being accepted, and, you know, even possibly feeling worthless. Can you relate to that feeling? Quick sidebar, I couldn't go without saying shout out to Rob Riggle from 21 Jump Street for playing Vice Principal Dickers. His performance in this portrayal was phenomenal. So to recap, the Breakfast Club archetypes were varied to accommodate for the Victorious characters, which, you know, makes the show so unique and not one-dimensional. You know, Tori, she's supposed to be represented as the princess criminal, or I guess anti-princess, which makes a lot of sense because, you know, Tori, even though she's the star of the show, she gets the most hate. Jade is supposed to be the criminal basket case. You know, she's always causing trouble and repeatedly harassing her friends, you know, but it's clear her frustrations is just a mask for a deeper suffering. You know, Beck, he's supposed to be the extension of the criminal. Jade pretty much takes on the role for Beck, and, you know, Beck doesn't really do anything in the episode or in the show. You know, no hate towards Beck, but, you know, even though it's ironic because Beck is supposed to be the actor of the cast, yet his character does the least amount of acting. I guess Ivan Jogia can get away with it because his hair moves, you know, no shade. Andre is the athlete or musician. You know, his role is pretty consistent throughout the episode, and he's supposed to represent the macho man of the group. You know, Andre, he's pretty much just there to sit on the sidelines and give the audience, you know, stored energy whenever it's time to fly. It's actually pretty ridiculous how much energy Andre and Andy put into these scenes. Kat is the basket case princess. You know, she's pretty and naive, and, you know, she's the type of character that can't be left alone by herself. You know, she's a submissive and dainty type, you know, and she's pretty much, she just tags along with whatever the group, you know, does. And lastly, Robbie, you know, is the nerd basket case. He's nerdy and, you know, quirky and awkward, yet he's bold and amusing. He's the most layered character, and on top of that, he's, you know, also a basket case too. You know, he puts on a mask to hide his insecurities and goes through life being an outcast. Hey, I like black curls. Like, what the fuck was that supposed to mean?
Hey, I like black curls.
Yo, Robbie, hands down, best character. The reason why I'm willing to argue this was the best episode of Victorious is because, you know, as an artist, I can tell when an idea is executed the exact way you wanted it to, you know, like perfectly. And you don't have to know the plot of Victorious to enjoy this specific episode, you know. I think that this episode perfectly represents every character in a nutshell. Dan Schneider, I think he did a great job of parodying the Breakfast Club, catering to the Victorious characters, you know, in their archetypes, specifically, and creating an episode that's kind of like a project within its own. You know, this episode, it doesn't drive the plot of the show, you know, so when I say it really doesn't matter what happens in this episode, it's kind of like, you know, Tori losing her balloon that the random panda gave to her at the end of the episode, and where that balloon ends up, it really doesn't matter, just like the episode. Thank you guys for making it all the way to the end of my video. If you enjoyed that content, please guys make sure you like, subscribe. Let me know in the comment section down below what other videos you want me to do, what other topics. I dropped a couple Victorious videos on my channel. It's gonna be on the screen somewhere, and it's gonna be in the comment section down below. So hit your boy up down there. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Please guys don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. We're on the road to 10K, and I'm gonna see you guys next video. Love.